I was hauling a load I was never supposed to know existed. 13 years on the road, and I've seen wrecks, fires, and blood on the asphalt. But never anything that made me afraid to look in my own mirrors. Every night, at every stop, the same silver SUV appeared. No plates, no lights, no driver. Just waiting. At first, I thought it was paranoia. But when my dashcam recorded me, standing outside the trailer in the middle of the night, I realized someone, or something, was running a game I didn't understand. You want to know what was inside that trailer? And why men would kill to keep it secret? Then listen to the end. Because on this run, the road wasn't my home anymore. It was my trap. Hit that follow, drop a like, and turn the volume up. This is the story truckers whisper about, but never tell out loud. The order came in before dawn, while the truck stoplights still glowed like a quiet constellation over the flat, dark east of Houston. Jack Mercer stood at the counter with a paper cup warming his fingers, and the bitter smell of brewed all-night coffee pushing back sleep. The cashier rang him up, called him Han without looking, and slid over a receipt slick with fryer grease. Outside, the yard lights hummed, and the air tasted like rain that had not decided yet. He told himself, as he always did, that the road was home. Not the rented apartment off a frontage road in Pasadena with the empty couch and the crooked blinds. Not the pitted lot where he kept the pickup he almost never drove. Home was a line on the map, and the way the line bent through counties, around rivers, up into air that cooled 500 miles from where it started. Home was the hum under his boots when the engine idled and the wheel waited for his hands. Home had no dishes in the sink. Home never smelled like someone else's shampoo in the morning. The road was simple, and he had learned to trust simple things. He sipped and turned his phone over on the counter to check the dispatch again. Medical equipment, priority load, climate control required. Pickup at a warehouse in the energy corridor, delivery to a clinic on the west side of Denver. A straight shot northwest if you like the long ways around. But the route suggestion threaded him through the flat panhandle and the high, dry rectangles of New Mexico before rising into Colorado like the hinge of the continent. The notes were tidy, clipped, without personality. Verify chain of custody. Do not break seal. Contact receiving manager 2 hours out. 2 hours. He said it under his breath, as if the words might lie differently in the air than numbers did. 2 hours. He did not like numbers. Numbers were precise, and precision could be cruel. In Fallujah, years ago, numbers had been measurements shouted over the crack of fire. Distance to target, time to breach, count of vehicles in a convoy. Now he lived by mile markers and hours to go. But he turned every number into a picture in his head. 2 hours became a stretch of road easy enough for a steady throttle, and one song made of many smaller ones on the radio. The phone vibrated with a call he did not expect this early. Dispatch. He stepped away from the counter, away from the noise of lids snapping onto cups. Mercer. "You're on for the Denver," said a voice that tried for friendly and hit competent. Manny. New to the rotation or new to mornings? Jack pictured a kid with a pen behind his ear. "You're the best fit, weight and availability. You good with a refrigerated box?" "Always," Jack said. "Pickup window starts in 30. You're close?" Papers rustled on Manny's end. A cough. Clients particular. Hospital group that likes everything signed with the same pen. Close enough. Jack glanced through the glass at the quiet shape of his rig. "Anything else?" Manny hesitated. You could hear it even in the mild static. "Nah, just keep the seal unbroken and watch your brakes. They're finicky with sensors, got a register in the back. It'll hum when it shouldn't." Don't worry if it hums. Don't worry if it hums. Jack filed the sentence where he kept sentences that would not settle. Copy, he said, then corrected himself for a world where code words were for shows on television. Sure thing. He walked back outside. His truck, a long-nosed Peterbilt he had given no name, waited with patient steel. White cab, blue stripe along the door. His company's logo faded from sun and washing. He circled as he always did, hand on cold metal, eyes on lines and tires and the trailer's square jaw. Habit was a soft prayer he made to bolts and stress fractures, to axles and seams. The road forgave a careful man. He had learned that the way you learn the weight of a rifle at night. Climbing up into the cab, he felt the usual tug in his chest, the particular relief of being where things make sense. The big diesel came to life under his feet, a rumble that loosened something in his bones. He set the radio low. Out of the speaker, a morning DJ joked about traffic, as if traffic were a prank the city pulled on itself. The CB was quiet, a soft rustle like wind through grass. He took the ramp back to the interstate, lights thinning as the sky thought about paleness. Houston slid past with its puzzles of loops and ramps, the refineries giving off their vapor like dreamy beasts on the edge of waking. He kept the trailer slow on the curves and steady on the straights. He was not late. He would not be late. He thought about the words on the dispatch. Medical equipment. He pictured stainless steel, a bright face of a monitor, the careful weight of a device that could measure a life by electrical whispers. He pictured gloved hands, a cart squeaking down a corridor that smelled like lemon and fear. He pulled into the warehouse yard with the sun just a suggestion. The security guard checked his papers without looking at his face. Inside, a dock worker with a clipboard guided the pallet jack like a dance. Metal cages rolled out, wrapped in plastic, slick as rainfish. A supervisor in a soft-shell vest explained the chain of custody, while a red light blinked on a camera in the corner. Jack nodded when he needed to, and kept his mouth shut otherwise. "Temperature's got to stay at this mark," the supervisor said, tapping the readout. "Alarm will ping the office if it dips. We'll call you. You lose power, you call us. Don't break the seal. Not for any reason." "Not for any reason," Jack echoed. While they loaded, he ran his hand along the inside wall of the trailer, feeling the faint, unsteady chill. He remembered nights in the desert when heat pressed in from every direction, like a hand over a mouth. He remembered the cold that followed when the sun fell like a stone. He breathed and let both sensations pass through him without asking to stay. The seal set, the paperwork signed with the same pen. He rolled back onto the frontage road. The morning had come up gray, and then broken into the pale gold that turns everything into a promise. He merged onto the long lane out of the city and felt the shift, a click inside his head. The load tugged different than coils or furniture. He drove like a man carrying sleep, like the whole trailer was a nursery you could not wake. The miles unspooled. He kept to the right, and the rigs kept company in a loose, unspoken way. A flash of headlights to signal a lane was clear, the small courtesy of leaving a space when an on-ramp gathered cars like a funnel gathers rain. He touched the CB once, offered a simple morning to the channel. A few voices came back, full of yawns and the music of accents scattered across states. He did not say more. His mind went where it always did when the city fell away. It went to the inside of a tent that smelled like dust and plastic, to the sound of a generator clattering like cutlery. It went to a name he had not spoken in years because it felt like a betrayal to say it without the man there to turn his head. It went to the spin of a coin on a plywood table that never stopped on heads when you were sure it would. He had learned how to live with the going. He let it pass like towns did. At a rest area west of Columbus, he parked beneath a threadbare tree and stretched his legs. The air had warmed. He could taste mesquite and diesel. A couple walked their dog, a low brown thing that wobbled when it trotted. Jack ate a sandwich he did not remember buying and drank water that tasted like plastic bottle. He checked the trailer's temperature and listened. Somewhere a compressor coughed and settled. He swept his eyes across the lot as a habit, and his gaze caught on a shape that did not belong in a herd of trucks. A long silver SUV idling 2 lanes over, windows dim with factory tint. He did not catalog it as a threat. Not then. Lots of folks drove those. Oil families, contractors, men with golf shirts and fat rings who stood too close to the pumps. Still, something about its patience scratched lightly at him, like a cat paw under a door. He kept moving, finished his food, threw away the crusts. By the time he climbed back into the cab, the SUV was gone, or perhaps it had never been there, and he had made it out of the bright boredom that sometimes painted shapes on his eyes. He pulled back onto the highway. Wind pressed the mirrors, and the horizon widened into the kind of long flat that makes a man imagine he can see his own future if he squints. The radio found a station that played old country with a heart too big for the small speakers. He fingered the scar at his jaw the way some men touch a charm, not for luck, but to remember there is no such thing. The phone vibrated with a text from dispatch. Routine line. Confirm progress. He sent back the miles and the estimate, then corrected it to words, because words made the time feel like a companion instead of a ruler. He wrote that he was making steady pace, that he would reach Amarillo by late night if the wind stayed fair. He did not send anything about the SUV. He kept such things to himself until they were not things anymore, but facts. A mile marker flashed by, another, and the day lifted into afternoon. The road laid itself down before him like a promise he was brave enough to believe for now. At a truck wash outside Vernon, he pulled in to rinse the dust he did not need to carry. Water hammered the trailer, and the man with the hose laughed at something a co-worker said. When the soap ran away along the concrete and he rolled forward to dry in the sun, the same kind of silver SUV cruised past the lot entrance, slow enough to see, fast enough to deny. Jack kept his face neutral and his hands light on the wheel. He told himself the world is full of trucks and full of SUVs and full of nothing at all. He climbed back into traffic, turned the radio down, let the engine speak instead. The line on the map reached north and west like an arm stretched across a couch. Easy, without strain. He aimed for the next fuel stop and the one after that. For sleep in a town where the motel's sign still flickered. He aimed for Denver, where a clinic waited with a clean floor and a signature and a receiving manager whose voice he could only imagine. The hum in the trailer came and went the way Manny had said it might. It did not worry him. Not yet. Worry was a city that charged toll, and he did not feel like paying. He watched the sky bruise, then clear, the way it does on days that want to be something. His breath settled into the cadence of the highway. The road, his old, honest road, laid itself under him like a truth he could handle. And somewhere behind the easy miles, a thought as thin as fishing line tugged, asking to be noticed. He ignored it for now. The long haul was just beginning. By mid-morning, the highway had flattened into that endless ribbon of gray Texas sun. Dry air shimmering, the heat lifting from the asphalt in soft mirages that danced just out of reach. Jack Mercer settled into his rhythm. Cruise steady, check mirrors, listen to the voice in his head that kept time better than any clock. He didn't count miles, he counted songs. the kind that wrapped around the road like conversation you could have with yourself without shame. He knew every pattern of this life, the smell of diesel and hot rubber, the sting of caffeine behind his teeth, the way sunlight rolled across the hood like a slow hand. Routine was armor, and Jack had learned that armor didn't just protect, it quieted. It made you forget what was worth being afraid of. The radio played an old Merle Haggard tune about promises never kept. Jack sang a line or two, low, just to hear a human sound in the cab. A convoy of haulers passed him on the left, chrome flaring like mirrors catching ghosts. One of them flashed his lights, a silent greeting among the few who still cared enough to acknowledge you on the road. Jack nodded back, sipped the coffee gone lukewarm, and let his mind drift to his daughter. Ellie would be 13 now. The last photo he had was from her birthday 2 years ago. Her hair too long, smile tight like she didn't want the camera. Her mother had remarried, a good man, probably. Someone who kept a lawn and remembered to call home before midnight. Jack tried not to hate him for it. He'd sent a text that morning before he left Houston. Headed out. Same route, take care of yourself. No reply yet. He didn't expect one. The road opened wide near Wichita Falls, and he let the rig stretch its legs. The trailer hummed behind him, the soft electrical buzz Manny had mentioned. But the sound seemed different now. Less mechanical, more alive, like a voice caught behind a door. He turned down the radio, listening. The hum stopped, then faintly started again. He exhaled and laughed under his breath. Paranoid old man. You're just chasing ghosts in the wires. Still, he checked the display on the control panel. Temperature steady, nothing out of range. He let it go, but a sliver of unease lodged in the back of his throat. Around noon, he rolled into a diner outside Childress, Laura's Grill and Fuel, the kind of place that hadn't changed its sign since the 80s. The parking lot shimmered with heat, and the glass door squeaked like it was begging to be replaced. Inside smelled of bacon, bleach, and old coffee. "Morning, sweetheart," said the waitress, a woman with silver hair piled like cotton candy. Her name tag read, Betty Joe. "Trucker special?" "Yeah," Jack said. "Eggs hard, toast dry, and whatever's fresh." She laughed. "Honey, nothing's fresh but the gossip." That made him smile. It felt good, almost human. He sat at the counter, stirring sugar into coffee, staring at the muted TV above the register. Local news, something about thefts at distribution centers, coordinated groups targeting commercial freight. He caught the words, medical supplies, and his stomach tightened. Betty Joe noticed him looking. "You fellas gotta be careful out there," she said. "Heard they hit a load near Oklahoma City last week. Driver woke up in a ditch, truck empty." Jack's hand paused over his cup. "That's so. That's what the news said. I say if folks want trouble, they'll find it. You just keep your eyes open." He nodded, dropped some bills on the counter, and stepped outside. Sunlight hit him like a shove. When he squinted across the lot, his eyes landed on a familiar shape. A silver Chevy Suburban, parked nose out by the road. Windows blacked, engine idling. His pulse ticked up. He stared for a full 10 seconds, waiting for the driver's door to move, for someone to step out, light a cigarette, wave, anything. Nothing. Just the soft shimmer of exhaust and the feeling of eyes where none should be. He climbed back into his cab, started the engine, and pulled onto the access road. In the side mirror, the Suburban rolled out a few seconds later. Same lane, same distance. Maybe it was just a traveler heading north, he told himself. Plenty of folks did. The interstate was full of patterns, and humans were predictable creatures. But when he changed lanes to pass a slower rig, the Suburban drifted too, mirroring his motion with lazy precision. He pressed the pedal a little deeper. The truck groaned, the turbo whistled, the road tilted. The SUV stayed put, not closing, not dropping back, just matching, like a shadow too obedient to be real. For the next 50 miles, he said nothing. No curses, no prayers, just breathing and scanning mirrors over and over, until the line between caution and fear blurred. When he finally pulled into a way station near the state line, the Suburban sailed past without slowing, disappearing into heat haze. Jack stood on the scale platform, hands on his hips, pretending to stretch while his eyes followed that silver glint until it melted into the horizon. Back in the cab, he checked his phone. One new message from dispatch. Dispatch. Route update. System maintenance on original corridor. Redirect via Highway 83 north, then cut west at Clayton. ETA unchanged. Jack frowned. That wasn't standard. System maintenance didn't close highways, and no one changed a route mid-run without a call, at least not for refrigerated freight. He dialed dispatch. Manny answered, voice half swallowed by static. Yeah, Mercer. Got your ping. You saw the update? Yeah. What's going on? Just a network reroute, nothing major. You'll still make Denver on time. Weather looks rough around Amarillo anyway. Jack waited. Something in the kid's tone, too quick, too smooth, didn't match the words. Copy that, he said finally. I'll keep rolling. Good man. Stay safe out there. The line clicked dead. He stared at the phone for a long minute, the silence in the cab feeling heavier than the load itself. Out the window, the road stretched ahead, clean, sunlit, endless. He should have felt relief. Instead, a thought rose slow and certain. Somebody knows exactly where I am. He started the engine again. The sound filled the cab, big and familiar, like armor returning to its shape. He rolled onto the ramp, followed the new route north. Wind whistled through the mirrors, the tires hummed against the road, and somewhere behind the mountains, waiting in the far blue distance, a plane he couldn't see was already unfolding. The sun slid lower, carving long shadows across the flatland. Jack kept his hand steady on the wheel, but his eyes flicked to the mirrors every few minutes. And each time, even when the horizon was empty, he swore he could still feel the reflection of that silver shape gliding just out of sight. The wind came up from the south in hot breaths, pushing dust across the shoulder and rattling the empty cattle guards. By late afternoon, the sky had that dry, scraped look West Texas wears when weather is still deciding whether to show teeth. Jack kept the Peterbilt steady on the new route, letting the rig lean into it, listening to the freight hum behind him the way you listen to a sleeping child. For rhythm, for breaks in rhythm, for whatever the body says before the mouth can. Highway 83 rolled him north, past fields shaved down to stubble, and towns that were more water towers than streets. He had stopped talking to the radio. He had stopped singing. His breath lived in the mirrors. Even when the glass showed nothing but his own white cab and the stretched ribbon of 2 lanes, he felt the trace of another presence, that silver hint like the memory of a car you nearly hit last week. He reached Clayton just before evening, that tender hour when every storefront looks forgiving and every long shadow feels friendly. Signs for motels with names like Roadrunner and Dusty Spur blinked to life. He picked the truck stop at the edge of town, where the fuel island lights turned moths dizzy and the asphalt wore a permanent stain of drizzle, diesel, and old coffee. Inside the convenience store, The cooler hummed, and a television near the lottery tickets showed highlights from a game he was not watching. He bought water, some jerky, a pack of mints, and asked for the restroom key from a clerk whose eyes stayed fixed on a phone that flashed blue. On his way back out, he noticed the corkboard by the exit. Lost dogs, night shift help wanted, and a printed warning from the county sheriff. Be aware of organized theft targeting commercial cargo. Report suspicious vehicles. The paper had been rained on and dried again. Its edges curled like a reluctant truth. He crossed the lot with a slow, loose gait. The one that said he had been on the road long enough to make walking feel strange. The temperature had fallen just enough to soften the air. He checked the trailer's refrigeration readout. Numbers he translated into the word steady without looking too hard. He pinged dispatch with a brief update written in words, not digits. Making good time, winds manageable, stopping for fuel and an hour of rest. He fueled up, logged his brake, and set a small routine rolling, the one that lived in his hands. Wiped the dash dust, checked the straps on the spare tire, leaned shoulder against trailer door just to feel its refusal. He was not looking for anything, and so he nearly missed it. The micro scratch in the paint on the latch housing where none had been that morning, a bright hairline tilted like a hyphen. He touched it with the pad of his thumb. It did not flake. Fresh, then. Fresh like a sentence that had not chosen an ending yet. He looked down at the seal. Unbroken, the plastic tab intact, the code stamped clean. He did not repeat the code in his head. He had learned not to feed numbers. But he did take a picture, then another, angles catching the evening glare. After that, he did not move for several heartbeats. He let the sensation rise and pass, the phantom feeling of a hand on the small of his back, pushing him politely toward a door he did not want to open. In the cab, he powered up his dashcam interface. The unit had exterior coverage front and rear, and a side view that caught half the trailer door when he parked just right. The app greeted him with a cheerful icon and the kind of language written by someone who thought fear could be softened with friendly verbs. Jack tapped through to the last recording and scrubbed back to early afternoon. Empty lanes. A stray coyote. Dust streaking past like small weather. He flipped to the rear feed and watched his own wake, rain of grit, long tail of an America forever sweeping itself behind. Nothing. He fast-forwarded with a knuckle, stopped at the moment he pulled into the lot. The rear feed showed a brief shiver of light, then a gray bar. He frowned. Went back. Play. Truck pulls in, angle swings, sky settles, gray bar. The timestamp kept moving. The picture did not. He closed the app and reopened it. Same thing. He dug the micro SD card from the side of the unit with a fingernail and slotted it into his old laptop, the one with a missing key and a sticker from a coffee shop he had never visited. He felt his breath go shallow. That old, careful breath you use when someone is counting the seconds you have left. The file tree populated. All the usual structure sat there like clean laundry folded by a stranger. He opened the relevant hour on the rear camera. The first few minutes showed fuel dust curling and a kid skateboarding past with a bag of chips under his arm. Then the frames glitched to a field of noise and held it, stubborn, until 10 minutes after he had gone inside. He ran a checksum utility he kept because the world had taught him to keep tools. The files reported healthy. They showed their green check marks like medals. He did not smile. A knock on the passenger door made him flinch. The knock was light, 3 taps, followed by a voice that belonged to someone who did not want to scare you. "Hey, driver, you mind if I ask you a question?" Jack slid the laptop closed and set it by his leg. He leaned to look. A man stood on the step rail, small, clean cap with a local feed store logo, a ring of keys on his belt. late 30s maybe. His face wore the pleasant, practiced, open look of a guy who sells things too heavy to carry. Beyond him, in the diagonal of light between rigs, Jack saw nothing silver, only the motes and midges doing their evening dance. "What's up?" Jack asked. "Your back door," the man said, pointing vaguely with his chin. "I thought I saw someone looking at it while you were inside. Could have been nothing. A guy in a hoodie, tall. He walked off when I stared too long." The man shrugged in a way that managed to mix apology and warning. "Just thought you'd want to know." Jack opened the door. The air outside felt a degree cooler. "Which way did he go?" The stranger pointed toward the far end of the lot, where the light fell off into shadow, where the chain-link fence sagged and a tumbleweed had wedged itself like a trapped dog. "Back there. He didn't get in your trailer. Least I don't think so." "Appreciate it." "No problem." The man stood a moment longer, like he might ask for something in return, then just nodded and walked away, between shadows. Jack climbed down. He walked the length of the trailer like it was a body he had known a long time and was seeing for the last. At the rear, he crouched, put his ear near the latch, hearing nothing but the metallic thrum of his own pulse translated through steel. He ran the beam of a flashlight along the seam where the door met the frame. No sign of prying. He traced the scratch again, that new bright hyphen. He photographed it from another angle and told himself it could be anything. A stray cart, a careless hand truck, a corner of a pallet 2 stops ago. He told himself lies softly to see if any would sound like truth. Back in the cab, he clicked up the CB and rode the noise a minute. Channel chatter was light, the way it gets when the hour draws folks toward dinner and showers. A voice from somewhere east of town. "Any of you rollin' west tonight, keep eyes out for 4-wheelers playing games with the big boys." Another voice, lower, bored. "Ain't that every night?" Laughter. Then someone else, flat as a map. "Heard about a red coupe throwing pennies at trailers south of Rayton. Kids or dumb criminals, hard to tell." He keyed in. "Anyone seen a silver Suburban riding close by mile marker signs like they owe him money?" A pause. Then, "You got more than one of those, friend." Another voice. "Plate?" Jack said. "No plate I could see." Static rolled. Could be nothing. Could be looking for easy pickings. Watch your stops. He almost asked if anybody had heard about medical runs getting tailed, then swallowed the question. He had learned that you do not say the exact shape of your fear out loud if you can help it. It makes the outline stronger. He opened his dispatch thread and typed. Noticed new scratch on rear latch housing, seal intact, dashcam rear feed glitched during last stop. Any system updates on the unit? He deleted the words dashcam rear feed glitched and wrote a softer version. Rear camera seems unreliable, might be a software thing. He hit send before he could second-guess the revision. The answer came fast enough to feel pre-written. Dispatch. Copy. System patch pushed night prior may affect legacy camera models. No action needed. If seal remains intact and temp holds, proceed per route. Will flag your unit for review at terminal. He read it twice and felt the center of the words go hollow. He knew patches. He knew language meant to soothe. He also knew the scent of coordination when it was still faint. He stared at the message and let memory lay another image over the present. A briefing tent lit in sodium glow, a captain with clean boots and clean hands, saying the phrase "no action needed" about a neighborhood that had not yet decided whether to let them cross and go home again. The wind freshened. A gust slapped a paper cup across the lot. Jack looked out at the far fence where shadows had thickened, and felt the shape of a tall man in a hood move there, a shape the light would not admit. He shut down the laptop, slipped the micro SD into his wallet, and wrote the time in his log with quiet neatness, word by word, as if handwriting could make anything honest. Sleep, he told himself. Push past Clayton and bed down west of Rayton, where the night air cooled the tongue. But when he turned the key, he did something he rarely did. He took a slow loop around the truck stop before heading for the exit, like a dog circling twice before lying down. He let the headlights sweep the edges where the sodium light failed. On the last pass, near the edge of the lot where the gravel goes thin, his beams caught a set of footprints in the fine dust. 2 long tracks that led nowhere, as if a man had walked out of shadow and then decided not to finish being real. Size big, tread generic. They angled toward his trailer's rear, paused, turned away. No SUV in sight, no hoodie. Only the tracks and the scratch and the rear camera's gray silence. He pulled out onto the access road. As the truck straightened, he caught a glint in the side mirror, a flash of metal far back by the highway entrance, a long silhouette easing from a shoulder and falling into the lane a polite distance behind. No lights flashed, no horn, just a patient matching of speed, like an answer you did not ask for. Routine had taken him this far. Routine had kept the ghosts whispering and not shouting. But tonight the pattern felt like a leash someone else held. He took a breath the way a swimmer does before the plunge and merged into the dark, the highway unrolling like a command. Somewhere behind him, the silver shape rode easy, not chasing yet, just letting him know that the watching had started. By the time Jack reached the New Mexico line, the day had folded itself into violet dusk. The desert stretched flat and endless, its surface shimmering under a thin moon. The Peterbilt's headlights carved twin tunnels through the dark. But beyond them the world was black, empty, infinite. The kind of black that makes you think too much. He'd been driving for close to 16 hours, minus the stops, and fatigue had started to press on him like a heavy hand. Every few minutes he'd roll his shoulders, shift in the seat, take another sip of bitter gas station coffee gone cold. The hum of the trailer had settled into a constant, steady drone, mechanical, harmless. He told himself that, over and over. The CB crackled now and then, static, stray voices. One trucker talking about a blown tire near Las Vegas, New Mexico. Another bragging about making Santa Fe in record time. Ordinary chatter. It helped a little. But the road still whispered. It whispered in the whine of wind through the mirrors, in the soft slap of loose tarp straps, in the faint echo that seemed to come from somewhere behind him every time he hit a bump. He'd driven through silence before. Silence in war, silence in deserts, silence in empty motels at the end of long hauls. But this one felt different. This one sounded like someone breathing in rhythm with him. He shook it off and turned up the radio. Country station fading in and out of static, a woman's voice singing about someone she'd left in Dallas. The signal wavered, then vanished entirely. Just hiss. He reached for his phone, checked the dispatch thread again. No new messages. The last one, no action needed. Proceed per route. Glared at him like a lie told too kindly. The headlights picked up movement, a shape sliding out from behind a rise on the opposite lane. Silver, wide. Familiar. The Suburban. Jack's heart gave a hard kick against his ribs. It was there again, coming up slow in the opposite direction, headlights off. Just a dark mass moving silent until the last second when it flicked on its brights, a flash of white fire right into his windshield. Jack cursed, threw a hand up to block it, tires bumping the rumble strip before he corrected. By the time his vision cleared, the SUV was gone, swallowed by the dark behind him. He breathed out, rough and shaky. "All right," he said to no one. "We're doing this again." He wanted to believe it was random, coincidence. But coincidences don't have habits. This one did. The next 2 hours blurred into rhythm. Asphalt, hum, mirrors. He caught the glint of taillights now and then, far back. Too far to read, too steady to ignore. At a rest stop outside Raton, he pulled off. He didn't even pretend it was for fuel or food. He just needed stillness, a chance to listen. The lot was empty except for one old freightliner and a vending machine flickering like a dying star. Jack killed the engine, stepped out. The air was cold, mountain-sliced, thin enough to sting. He stretched, rolled his neck, then walked around the rig with his flashlight. The trailer looked fine, seal intact, scratch unchanged. But on the dust along the side panel, faint but real, was the outline of a handprint. Too high to be his, too clean to be old. He stood there a long moment, light trembling in his grip. Someone had touched his rig. He crouched, scanning the gravel. No new footprints this time, just his own. Still, the air had that charged, metallic taste, like the seconds before thunder. He checked the trailer temperature, holding steady. No alerts. But when he opened the cab door, his dash display blinked twice and reset itself. The date flashed wrong for a second, January 1, 2010, before the system corrected. "What the hell?" Jack muttered. He tapped the screen, pulled up diagnostics. Everything read normal, no errors logged. He thought of Manny's voice, too quick, too calm. System patch pushed night prior. Jack got back behind the wheel and turned the key. The diesel rumbled awake, steady and low. He pulled out of the rest stop, merging onto the highway once more. The moon had climbed higher now, pale and watchful. The road twisted up into the first ridges of Colorado, and the air thinned further. His ears popped. The hum from the trailer deepened, became almost a pulse. As the grade rose, the Suburban appeared again, this time in his mirrors. Headlights far behind, but unmistakable. He tested it, slowed down 10 miles an hour. The Suburban slowed too. He sped up. So did it. "All right," Jack said quietly. His voice sounded strange in the cab, tight, too careful. "So we're not pretending anymore." He reached for the CB mic. "Breaker 19, anyone got eyes on a silver SUV running north past Raton? Looks like no plates. Might be playing tag with me." Static. Then a voice, slow, rough, male. "Northbound or south?" "North," Jack said. "Late model Suburban. Been tailing a big blue Pete since Texas." Silence. Then another voice broke in, higher, maybe a woman. "Saw something like that near Springer last week. 2 of them, actually. One sits back, one runs ahead. Careful, driver." Jack's skin prickled. "Appreciate it." He set the mic down, eyes flicking to the mirror again. Still there. Same distance. The road began to climb harder now, switchbacks curling through rock and pine. The Peterbilt labored, gears groaning low. Behind, the SUV's lights vanished around a bend, then reappeared seconds later, closer this time. He thought about calling state police, then pictured the questions, the waiting, the paperwork. They'd tell him to pull over. They'd tell him to sit tight. And if whoever followed him was serious, sitting tight might mean not getting up again. So he did what truckers do best. Kept rolling. The wind cut harder through the pass, shoving the trailer sideways in long, invisible waves. Jack gripped the wheel tighter, muscles tense, eyes burning from the strain. Every sense tuned outward. The smell of hot brake pads, the sound of gravel pinging under the tires, the shifting glow of headlights somewhere behind the curve. He made it through the pass and down into the dark basin beyond. At the first pull-off, he killed his lights and coasted silently onto the shoulder. The Peterbilt idled low, engine purring like a cat, half asleep. Minutes crawled. Then, from around the bend, the Suburban appeared. Slower now, scanning. Its headlights swept across the road, lingered, then passed. Jack waited until its taillights faded to nothing. Only then did he exhale, long and slow. He reached for the worn photo tucked in the visor, Ellie smiling awkwardly in that birthday picture, and set it on the dash. "Guess it's just you and me again, kid," he murmured. The road stretched ahead, dark and endless. He didn't know who was following him or why, but he knew one thing with absolute clarity. This was no random tale. Somebody had marked him. Somebody who knew what he carried and where he'd go. He shifted into gear, eased back onto the asphalt. The engine growled low and steady, faithful as ever. But somewhere out there in the dark, a whisper followed. Part wind, part memory, part warning. The kind of whisper that tells you the road remembers everything you try to leave behind. The morning came cold and blue, stretching over the mountains like a slow exhale. Jack Mercer pulled into a way station east of Trinidad, the sun breaking pale across the peaks. He was bone-tired but wired, the kind of exhaustion that sharpens your edges instead of dulling them. The night had given him no rest, only silence, mirrors, and the dull ache of a question that had started to sound like a heartbeat. What's in the trailer? He'd been repeating it for hours. The more he tried to push it away, the heavier it got. He parked, set the brakes, and climbed down. Frost clung to the asphalt in soft silver patches. Steam rose from his exhaust in lazy curls. A highway patrol cruiser idled near the scales, its lights off. An officer leaning against the hood, sipping from a thermos. Jack gave a polite nod. The officer nodded back without interest. Nothing out of place. Just another morning. Just another load. But it wasn't. He could feel it now. The difference between routine and warning. He checked the trailer again, like a man checking a locked door even when he knows he locked it. The seal still intact, the latch still clean, except for that thin scratch he couldn't stop noticing. He ran his fingers over it once more. Cold metal, slick with condensation. Inside, the hum was steady. That same soft vibration he'd tried to ignore since Houston. It had rhythm, not constant. Like breathing. He leaned close to the door, ear to steel. The sound wasn't just mechanical. There was something beneath it, faint, irregular. Click, pause, click. Jack stepped back fast, his chest tightened. "What the hell is in there?" he whispered. The manifest said medical equipment. He'd hauled plenty of that before, monitors, lab freezers, oxygen compressors. But those don't click, they don't pulse, they don't whisper through 6 inches of insulated metal. Back in the cab, he scrolled through his messages again. Nothing new from Manny. No new route changes. No apologies for system errors. Just silence. He considered calling Denver directly, maybe the clinic listed on the manifest. But there was a number missing. The last 2 digits of the contact line blanked out. Sloppy or deliberate. He fired up the CB instead. "Breaker 19, any of you boys running medical loads up toward Denver today?" Static hissed back at him. Then a voice, older, dry as gravel. "Copy that, driver, might be. Why do you ask?" "Just wondering if your paperwork looked strange. Missing info, wrong digits?" A pause. "You hauling for Interstar?" Jack's pulse jumped. "Yeah." "Then you ain't the only one. Heard a couple fellas grumbling down Amarillo way. Sealed loads, mystery routing, dispatch acting funny. One of 'em said his trailer got tagged by some fellas in a black van. Didn't stop to chat." Jack stared at the radio. "They take the cargo?" "Nope. Just spooked him good. Next day, dispatch pulled his run mid-route. Paid him out partial and told him to keep quiet. I'd watch your six, driver." "Appreciate it," Jack said quietly. He clicked off the CB and just sat there for a long minute, watching the vapor from his breath fade against the windshield. If what the voice said was true, this wasn't about him. It wasn't paranoia. It was business, ugly, organized business. He started the engine again and eased onto the highway. The mountains grew taller, snow lines crisp against the blue. Traffic was thin, just the occasional pickup or livestock hauler. Every time a vehicle passed, Jack's eyes flicked to the mirrors, hunting silver. Midday found him at a diner outside Pueblo, Colorado. Penny's Roadhouse, a squat building with a hand-painted sign and a bell over the door that jangled like nerves. Inside, it smelled like bacon and diesel fumes. He took a seat at the counter. The waitress, red hair tied up with a pencil, slid him coffee before he even asked. "Long haul?" she said. "Always," Jack replied. "Heading where?" "Denver." She smiled. "You and half the world. Watch out for construction near Castle Rock. They got one lane shut down. It's a mess." He nodded, forcing a smile, and looked out the window. Across the lot, parked at an odd angle behind the fuel pumps, was the silver Suburban. His hand tightened around the mug. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. The driver wasn't visible through the tinted glass. Engine off, no lights, no license plate. Just there, a piece of the world pretending not to stare. When the waitress came back, he asked casually, "That SUV out there belong to someone here?" She glanced, shrugged. "Been sitting there most of the morning. Some guy came in earlier, asked if we had Wi-Fi, bought a coffee, left without drinking it. Why?" Jack hesitated. "Just wondering." She frowned. "You all right, hun? You look like you've seen a ghost." He gave a thin smile. "Something like that." He paid cash, stepped outside, and walked slow toward his truck. The air was crisp, the kind of cold that bites deep. His boots crunched on the gravel. He didn't look directly at the Suburban, just peripheral, measuring distance. When he climbed into the cab and started the engine, he saw movement. The SUV's brake lights flared. Then it rolled forward, merging behind him onto the access road. That was enough. He flicked his turn signal left, a feint, then cut hard right instead, doubling back behind the diner and out onto a parallel frontage road that rejoined the interstate a few miles ahead. In the mirror, the Suburban hesitated, then continued straight. Jack smiled grimly. Not today. He merged back onto the main lane, heartbeat steadying. Maybe he'd finally shaken them. But then, 15 minutes later, his phone buzzed. Dispatch. Routing update. Please divert through Colorado Springs due to high wind advisories. Confirm receipt. He read it twice. His stomach dropped. They shouldn't have known he'd changed routes, unless someone was watching his GPS feed. Son of a bitch, he muttered. He killed location sharing, then yanked the SIM card out completely. For a few blessed miles, there was nothing but the hum of tires and the slow beat of the engine. Then the trailer clicked again, that strange pulse under the hum. Sharper now. He turned down the radio, listening. 3 clicks. Pause. 3 clicks again. a pattern. Jack gritted his teeth, grabbed a wrench from the side pocket, and climbed out when he reached a turnout near a canyon overlook. The air whipped cold against his face as he circled to the rear. The sound was louder now, coming from inside the trailer, not random, deliberate. He stared at the seal, unbroken and official. Then, for the first time in 15 years of hauling freight, Jack broke protocol. He pulled his Leatherman, sliced the plastic tag clean through, and cracked the latch. Cold air spilled out, white and heavy with chemical frost. Inside, the trailer was lined with metal crates stacked tight, each stamped with a federal biomedical label, not Interstar's logo. He climbed up, flashlight in hand. The first crate was bolted shut, but the second had a corner peeled slightly from its bracket, like someone had opened it before. Jack wedged the blade under the lip. Pried. The lid popped with a hiss. Inside wasn't medical equipment. It wasn't machines or monitors. It was vials, hundreds of them, sealed, labeled with serials and biohazard warnings. He picked one up. A pale blue liquid shimmered inside. The label read, "Property of U.S. Defense Biomedical Research Division." Classified material. Jack's stomach turned to ice. He set the vial down carefully and climbed out, heart hammering. He'd hauled military freight before, once, long ago, under guard. But this wasn't sanctioned. No escorts, no manifests, no warnings. Just him, a civilian, a disposable courier. He looked back down the empty highway. The mountains loomed silent. In the distance, far but not far enough, a glint caught the morning sun. Silver. The Suburban was coming again. Jack jumped into the cab, slammed the door and fired up the engine. Gravel spat from the tires as he tore back onto the road. He didn't know who those men were or what they wanted. But now he knew why they were following him. And for the first time since Iraq, Jack Mercer was carrying something worth killing for. The storm came down fast out of the Rockies, the way it always does, without warning and without apology. 1 hour the sky above Highway 24 was clean and cold. The next, it was a bruise. Jack Mercer watched the clouds roll in through his windshield, heavy as smoke. The wind pushed at the trailer, hard enough that he felt the steering wheel twitch in his palms. Snow came next, thin at first, like a handful of white dust, then thicker, until the world beyond the hood turned to static. He should have pulled over, he knew that. But stopping meant sitting still, and sitting still meant waiting to be found. He'd spent enough of his life being hunted to know the difference between safety and a trap. The CB was dead air now. No chatter, no friendly voices, just the low hum of static like the road itself was breathing. His phone, stripped of its SIM card, was silent. He hadn't heard from dispatch since the last reroute. Good. Let them think he'd gone dark. The mountains rose around him, black teeth against the snow. His rig clawed up the grade, tires slipping a little on the ice. The engine groaned, steady but strained. In the mirror, there was only white. No lights, no shapes, nothing. Then, out of that white, the silver Suburban appeared again. It came ghosting through the storm like it had been carved out of the snow itself. Headlights dimmed, engine silent under the roar of the wind. Jack's pulse kicked into gear, hot and sharp. He couldn't see the driver, but he didn't need to. He knew the rhythm now, the distance it kept, the way it drifted close just long enough to remind him who was in charge of the chase. He grabbed the CB mic anyway. Breaker 19, this is northbound hauler. Mile marker 205, got a four-wheeler running tail? Anyone got eyes? Nothing. just the storm swallowing his voice whole. He put the mic down, exhaled slow. "All right then," he muttered. "We'll do it my way." The road climbed higher, twisting through pines and granite. He downshifted, coaxing the big diesel up the slope, then cut his headlights for a few seconds. The cab went dark except for the soft glow of the dashboard. He counted under his breath, 1, 2, 3, and flicked them back on. In the mirror, the Suburban's lights flared too. Jack smiled, but there was no humor in it. At the top of the pass, he spotted a narrow maintenance turnout carved into the cliffside, barely wide enough for the rig, half buried in snow. He took it without signaling, the trailer fishtailing once before catching. He killed the engine, doused the lights, and sat in the dark. The only sound was his own breathing, the slow crackle of cooling metal. Seconds stretched. Snow hissed against the windshield. Then he saw them, two beams cutting through the storm. The Suburban rolled past, slow, almost cautious. Its brake lights glowed red in the whiteout, then faded as it disappeared down the curve. Jack waited. 5 seconds. 10, 30. When he finally exhaled, it came out shaky. He eased the rig back onto the road, tires crunching over ice, careful not to lose traction. He thought maybe he'd bought himself some distance. But as he rounded the next bend, he saw another vehicle ahead. Dark, square, blocking half the lane. The second Suburban. He barely had time to curse before the first one came up behind him again, headlights flaring bright. "Damn it," Jack hissed, slamming the wheel. He had nowhere to go but forward. The road ahead narrowed between two rock walls, barely wide enough for a single lane. He dropped the hammer. The Peterbilt roared, gears screaming as he shoved it into high revs. The front Suburban started backing up, trying to maintain the block, but the truck was faster than they'd expected. Jack rammed into it. The impact was thunder, metal on metal, the trailer's weight throwing sparks across the snow. The Suburban skidded sideways, crunching into the guardrail. Jack didn't stop. He couldn't. He pushed it until the rail gave way, and the SUV went spinning into the ravine, headlights tumbling like fireflies until they vanished. Behind him, the second vehicle accelerated, closing fast. Gunfire cracked, sharp, distinct. Bullets chewed into the trailer's rear doors, popping holes through the sheet metal. Jack ducked, adrenaline washing everything in white heat. He swerved left, then right, forcing the SUV to fight for traction on the icy grade. He reached the top of the pass and saw what he needed. A runaway truck ramp cutting up the mountain. Gravel, deep snow, steep incline. He turned the wheel hard and aimed straight for it. The Peterbilt hit the ramp at 40, tires biting deep, engine howling. The Suburban followed too close, headlights flashing wildly as it tried to keep up. Halfway up, Jack killed the engine and yanked the parking brake. The truck stopped dead. The SUV didn't. It slammed into the back of the trailer, a heavy metallic scream. For a moment, everything was sound. Shattered glass, spinning wheels, snow falling in slow motion. Then silence. Jack unbuckled, heart hammering, ears ringing. He climbed down into the storm, boots sinking ankle deep. The Suburban sat crumpled against the trailer, hood bent, steam pouring from the radiator. He could see movement inside, 2 figures. One slumped forward, the other lifted their head, dazed but alive. Jack didn't carry a gun anymore. He hadn't since Iraq. But old instincts came back like ghosts. He grabbed the tire iron from the side compartment and moved toward the wreck, keeping low. The driver door burst open. A man stumbled out. Black tactical jacket, headset still in one ear, eyes wide with fury. He lifted something, a pistol dark and small in the snow light. Jack swung the iron. The gun went off once, wild, the sound cracking through the canyon. The next second, the iron connected with a sick thud. The man dropped, face first, motionless. Jack kicked the pistol away, chest heaving. The passenger was crawling out now, bleeding from the forehead. He raised both hands. Don't shoot," he gasped. "We're not—" Jack leveled the iron, eyes hard. "Not what?" "Not cops," the man said, voice breaking. "Private security. Contracted. You weren't supposed to open the cargo." Jack stared. Snow gathered in his hair, melted down his neck. "Then what's in there?" The man coughed, blood on his lips. "Defense, trial shipment, illegal to move on civilian manifest. We were just supposed to track you, make sure it stayed sealed." "Track me?" He nodded weakly. "There's a beacon in the refrigeration unit. That's how they knew where you were, always knew." Jack's stomach turned. "And if I didn't stay sealed?" The man didn't answer. Jack stepped back, staring at the fallen figure in the snow, at the broken glass, the wreckage steaming in the cold. He looked at his truck, the dented trailers still humming softly in the dark. Tracked, every mile, every stop. The hum wasn't mechanical. It was a signal. He climbed back into the cab, hands trembling as he fired up the engine. Behind him, the Suburban was already fading into white, snow covering the blood. He didn't know where to go now. Denver was out. Interstar was out. Everything was out. But the road still ran west, and west was freedom, or something that looked close enough. He shifted into gear and drove, headlights cutting through the storm, the radio whispering low static like an old secret. Somewhere far behind, another vehicle started its engine. The hunt wasn't over yet. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world stripped clean and pale. The highway west of Fairplay shimmered under a thin crust of ice, the air so clear it rang like glass. Jack Mercer drove with both hands on the wheel, the muscles in his arms wired tight. The Peterbilt shuddered on the downgrades, its weight pushing against gravity, the whole rig humming like a held breath. He had driven through worse, but not while being hunted. The Suburban wreck from the runaway ramp was a memory still replaying in the back of his skull. The man's voice saying, "We were just supposed to track you." That had settled in his bones. He hadn't gone 30 miles before realizing what it meant. If there was one tracker, there would be more. Somewhere in the sealed refrigeration unit, hidden under the rows of crates, a beacon was still talking to whoever cared to listen. He wanted to stop and tear the trailer apart. But stopping meant open ground, meant headlights rolling up behind him. So he drove, letting the miles unspool until the sun broke over the ridge and burned gold off the snow. The mountains opened briefly into a shallow basin. A small town clung to its edge. One main street, a feed store, a diner, a gas station with a hand-painted sign that said, "Eats and Propane." He could smell bacon through the cracked window. His stomach tightened. He hadn't eaten since the diner near Pueblo. Hunger was good, though. Hunger kept you sharp. He pulled off the highway, eased the rig behind the station where the pumps didn't quite work and the snow lay unbroken. He killed the engine. Silence fell heavy and deep, the kind that makes you hear your own heartbeat like a drum. He stepped out, boots crunching, steam rising from the hood. The sky was too blue, too clean. It made the world feel temporary. Jack pried open the refrigeration panel, teeth clenched against the cold. The hum was louder now that he knew to listen for it. Behind the mesh venting, a small unit blinked, green light steady, like a heartbeat. He yanked the cover away. The beacon was simple, unmarked, the size of a lighter. He followed the wire down to a junction box labeled with the company name he didn't recognize. Orpheon Logistics Solutions. He ripped it out, tossed it into the snow, and crushed it under his boot until the light died. "Now we're quiet," he said aloud. And for the first time in 2 days, he almost believed it. Inside the diner, the heat hit him hard. Grease, coffee, cinnamon rolls, a radio playing soft gospel. The waitress behind the counter looked up, mid-30s, blonde hair under a baseball cap. She gave him the tired smile small towns reserve for travelers. "Morning, trucker. Coffee?" "Please," Jack said. His voice sounded strange, even to him, rough and low from too many miles. She poured, then asked, "You heading west or running from it?" He looked out the window at his rig. The road glinted beyond, wide and innocent. "Not sure yet." She nodded like she'd heard that before. "Folks come through all the time, chasing something or running from it. Either way, road don't care." Jack smiled a little. Ain't that the truth? He ate eggs and toast, forced himself to taste it. When he paid, the waitress hesitated. "You got someone waiting on you?" she asked, almost gently. Jack looked up. "Why?" "Because you look like a man who doesn't know if he's ever getting home." He didn't answer, just tipped more than he could afford and walked out. The cold slapped him clean again. He climbed back into the cab and checked the mirrors. The street was quiet, no traffic, no sign of the Suburban. For a heartbeat, he thought maybe it was done. Maybe the beacon was all it was. Then, as he rolled past the last building on the edge of town, something hit the side of his trailer with a sound like thunder. The truck lurched left, tires screaming against the ice. Jack fought the wheel, heart slamming. Another hit, this time from behind. Metal sheared, sparks spat across the mirror. He caught a glimpse of it in the glass, a matte black SUV, smaller than the Suburban, running lights off, front end armored. "Jesus," Jack hissed. He floored it. The Peterbilt roared up to speed, engine howling. The SUV stayed glued to his bumper, darting close enough that he could see its driver. A man in tactical black, face hidden behind a mask. Another figure leaned out the passenger side window, something metallic in his hands. A flash. The bullet punched through the trailer's rear panel, the sound sharp and clean. Another followed, then another, each one finding the steel with dull finality. Jack felt the rig buck as air hissed from a tire. He gritted his teeth, shifted down, forcing the truck to hold speed. He slammed the CB button. "Breaker 19, this is Mercer. I got an armed pursuit. Repeat, armed pursuit. Highway 24 northbound. 10 miles out of Fairplay. Requesting immediate..." Static swallowed his voice. Then, through it, a whisper. Not a trucker, not random noise. A woman's voice, calm, even. Mechanical. "Jack Mercer, pull over. You have cargo belonging to the United States government. You are in violation of federal transport law. Stop the vehicle." Jack froze. The voice came from the radio, clear and impossible. He checked his mic. It wasn't transmitting. They'd hijacked his frequency. He slammed the unit off and drove harder. The Peterbilt's engine bellowed. Snow sprayed in long, white arcs off the tires. Another burst of gunfire. The driver's side mirror shattered. Glass rained across the cab. Jack ducked instinctively, teeth gritted. He could feel the air shift as rounds tore through the side panels. Ahead, the road narrowed into a bridge, a narrow 2-lane span across a frozen river. He had one shot. He downshifted once, twice, and hit the brakes. The trailer fishtailed, swerving into the center line. The SUV behind him overcorrected, tires losing purchase on the ice. Jack threw the wheel right, then slammed the brakes again. The truck skidded sideways, blocking the bridge like a wall of steel. The SUV tried to swerve left but clipped the guardrail. Metal screamed. The vehicle flipped once, then rolled end over end into the ravine, disappearing in a bloom of white powder and black smoke. Jack sat there, breathing in the silence that followed. His heart was an engine of its own. The wind howled through the shattered mirror, cold against his cheek. He climbed down slowly, boots crunching in the snow. The air smelled like burnt oil and cordite. He walked to the edge of the bridge and looked down. The SUV lay upside down on the ice, steam rising from the hood. No movement, no sound. He stood there a long time, the silence so complete it rang in his ears. Then, crack. A gunshot echoed from below. Ice chipped near his feet. He dove behind the guardrail, instinct taking over. The shooter's second round missed wide. Jack rolled, grabbed the broken mirror stem from the road, and threw it as hard as he could. It clattered down the slope. Then, from below, the sound of a man's voice, angry, panicked. "We need him alive!" Another shape appeared on the far side of the bridge. Another vehicle cresting the hill, headlights bright. Jack sprinted for the cab. He climbed up, slammed the door, and fired the engine to life. The diesel roared, wheels spinning on the ice. He floored it, crossing the bridge at full throttle. Bullets chased him halfway across, then nothing but the echo of his own breath. He didn't look back until he reached the next curve. And when he did, the bridge behind him was gone in a haze of smoke and falling snow. Jack slowed only when the highway split into two lonely lanes, winding down toward the flat country. His hands shook on the wheel. His ribs hurt from the seatbelt. There was blood on his knuckles, but he didn't know whose. He stared straight ahead and muttered to himself, "They want me alive." Why? No answer came. Just the whisper of wind against the glass and the soft hum of the refrigeration unit that wouldn't stop singing. By the time Jack Mercer hit the outskirts of Denver, the world looked calm again. Too calm. The mountains softened into foothills. The snow thinned to a glittering dust, and the highway stretched out clean under a pale blue sky. You could almost believe nothing had happened. Almost. The Peterbilt ran rough now, one tire patched with a roadside kit, the mirror still gone. The trailer had bullet holes along its flank, neat as punctures in a story nobody would ever read. Every time Jack looked at them, he felt a mix of anger and awe, like the truck had survived something meant to erase it. He hadn't slept since the bridge. Every few miles, his eyes found movement in the mirrors. Phantom headlights, shapes that weren't there. He kept one hand on the wheel, the other hovering near the gear lever like a trigger. Denver shimmered in the distance, tall, clean, indifferent. The skyline looked like a promise he wasn't sure he could still afford. He should have felt relief. Instead, all he felt was cornered. He pulled off the interstate before the main turnoff, heading for a freight depot on the south side. One of Interstar's smaller satellite yards. He didn't trust it, but he needed answers. He couldn't keep running blind. The guard at the gate barely looked up as he rolled through. Jack parked in a far corner, engine idling, then reached for his phone. Screen cracked, battery low. No SIM, no service. He hesitated, then reinserted the card. The device lit up searching, found signal. Almost immediately, a text arrived. Manny, dispatch. Jack, where are you? Corporate's asking. They're saying your cargo's compromised. Please respond. Jack stared at the message. His thumb hovered over the screen. Jack. You tell them it was compromised the moment they lied to me. He didn't hit send. Instead, he pocketed the phone and climbed down. The yard smelled like rubber and diesel. Trailers sat in rows under a cold sun, their sides reflecting light like dull knives. A forklift hummed somewhere behind a chain-link fence. Ordinary sounds. Normal. But under it all, he felt something wrong. Quiet and electric. He walked toward the office trailer, an old prefab unit with the company logo peeling from its door. Inside, the air was warm and stale. A woman sat behind a desk, headset on, voice low. She looked up when he entered. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Jack Mercer," he said. "Run number 6479, Houston to Denver. I need to talk to Manny." She blinked, hesitated. "I don't think Manny's in the system anymore." Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" "Transferred. 2 days ago." He felt the bottom drop out of his chest. "Transferred where?" She shrugged. "They don't tell us that." "Look, I can log your delivery if you'll—" "I'm not logging anything," Jack said. His voice came out sharper than he meant. He caught himself, lowered it. "Sorry. I just need to talk to someone who knows what's in that trailer." She studied him for a second. Something shifted in her expression. Not fear, exactly, but understanding. "Wait here," she said, and disappeared into the back hallway. Jack stood there alone, the hum of fluorescent lights pressing on his ears. His reflection stared back from the dark window, hollow-eyed, bearded, older than he remembered. When the door opened again, it wasn't the woman who came back. It was a man in a gray suit, tall, clean, hair too neat for freight work. Corporate type. "Mr. Mercer," the man said smoothly, "you've had quite a trip." Jack's jaw clenched. "You with Interstar?" "Used to be," the man said, smiling faintly. "Now I handle special logistics. We've been following your progress." "Following." Jack's hand tightened on the strap of his vest. "Yeah, I noticed." "Your cargo's extremely sensitive," the man went on. "You weren't supposed to open it." "I wasn't supposed to be shot at either." The man's smile didn't falter. "Unfortunate, but you made it. That's what matters." Jack took a step closer. "What's in those crates?" "Research material," the man said, voice even. "Experimental. Technically government property, though that depends who you ask. Interstar was contracted to move it quietly. You were hired because you don't ask questions." "Well," Jack said, "I'm asking now." The man studied him. "Doesn't matter. You've done your part. Leave the rig here and we'll handle the rest. You'll be paid in full." Jack shook his head. "Not happening. Not till I know what you people put me in the middle of." Something cold flickered behind the man's eyes. "That's not a good idea." Before Jack could answer, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, thumb hesitating over the screen. "Unknown number. A single message. They're not Interstar. Get out." He looked up. The man was watching him closely. "Problem, Mr. Mercer." Jack smiled without humor. "Yeah," he said quietly. "A few." He turned and walked out fast, ignoring the man's voice calling after him. The cold hit like a slap as he stepped outside. He moved straight for the truck, boots crunching on gravel. Halfway there, a black SUV turned into the lot. Not silver this time, but close enough. His gut twisted. He broke into a run. The office door burst open behind him. Voices shouted. Jack climbed into the cab, fired the engine, and threw the rig into gear. Tires spun, caught, screamed against the asphalt. The truck lurched forward, trailer groaning as it swung wide. In the mirror, The SUV was closing fast. A man leaned out the window, shouting something he couldn't hear. Then came the glint. Sunlight flashing off the barrel of a rifle. Jack ducked as the shot cracked. The windshield starred with a perfect hole. He slammed the wheel left, clipping the corner of the gate, metal shrieking. The truck tore free, sparks flying. He hit the highway doing 40, then 50, then 60. The SUV followed, relentless. He could hear the radio again, faint static, then a voice cutting through. Not Manny's, not the woman from dispatch, someone else. Calm, deliberate. "Jack Mercer, you're in over your head. Pull over and we can end this clean." He didn't answer, just pressed harder on the throttle. The voice came again, softer this time. "You think they care about you? You think you're a hero? You're just a signature on a manifest." Jack gritted his teeth. "Maybe," he said out loud, "but I sign my own name." He yanked the wheel and took the next exit without braking, the truck tilting dangerously as it barreled down a side road lined with pine. Gravel spat like sparks. The SUV overshot the turn, tires squealing, losing seconds. Jack didn't stop until the road narrowed into a forest track. No pavement, no cameras, no witnesses. He killed the lights, killed the engine, and let silence fall. The world held its breath. Somewhere in the distance, a crow called once. Then nothing. He sat there, hands still on the wheel, heartbeat loud in his ears. He'd just burned whatever bridge he had left. The job, the company, the rules. And in the frozen stillness of the woods, for the first time in his life, Jack Mercer realized something simple and terrifying. He wasn't running freight anymore. He was running truth. The forest road narrowed until it was barely more than a pair of tire ruts. Branches brushed against the mirrors, whispering in the dark. The storm clouds that had shadowed the mountains for days finally broke apart, leaving strips of moonlight cutting through the trees. Jack Mercer drove without headlights, trusting the pale silver glow, and the map burned into his memory. He didn't know exactly where he was going, only that he couldn't go back. Denver was behind him. The company was gone, and the men chasing him had government guns and private funding. Somewhere inside his trailer lay the kind of truth people killed to protect. He'd stopped thinking about money hours ago. Now it was survival, and maybe, if luck held, something close to justice. The fuel gauge hovered near empty. The hum from the refrigeration unit had fallen silent after he crushed the beacon, and the absence of that sound made the night even louder. The big diesel engine throbbed like a heartbeat in his bones. He reached a crossroads. One sign pointed south toward Woodland Park, another west toward Salida. He went west. After another 10 miles, a sign for a small town appeared. Buena Vista, population 3,000. He remembered it. Years back, after his discharge, he'd done a short contract run out here. Hauled building supplies for a veterans rehab center run by a woman named Karen Ellison. She'd been Army once, like him. Straight talker. The kind of person who didn't scare easy. If anyone could help him, it was her. He pulled into town near midnight, parking the Peterbilt on a side street near the river. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. The trailer loomed behind him like a silent accomplice. He checked the mirror one last time. No headlights, no tailing shadows. Karen's rehab center sat at the edge of town, an old motel converted into a halfway house for soldiers who couldn't sleep without noise. A single light glowed in the front office. Jack walked up the gravel path, breath clouding in the cold. She answered the door before he could knock. Same short blonde hair, same tired eyes that didn't miss a thing. "Mercer," she said, "you look like you've been through hell." Just a long haul, he said. She stepped aside. Get in here before you freeze. The office smelled like coffee and old wood. A map of Colorado hung behind the desk, pins marking every veteran she'd helped place. She poured him a mug, handed it over, waited. So, she said finally, you running from something or to it? He took a sip, grimaced at the bitterness. Both. Her eyebrows lifted. That truck outside yours? Yeah. And the trailer? He hesitated. You don't want to know. Too late, she said. You parked it in my driveway. Jack set the cup down, rubbed his face with both hands. They sent me out of Houston with a sealed load. Said it was medical gear for a clinic. Turns out it's government research, classified, illegal to ship through civilian routes. People are dead because of it. Karen whistled low. You open it? Had to. He met her eyes. It's bad, Karen. Whatever it is, it's not medicine. It's military biotech, viral compounds, experimental. I think someone at Interstar was selling it off record, using truckers like me to move it under the radar. And now they're cleaning up loose ends. Yeah. She leaned back in her chair, studying him. You got proof? Jack nodded toward the truck. In the crates, serial numbers, government seals, the whole mess. She thought for a moment, then stood. There's a guy in Colorado Springs. Works defense oversight. Used to audit contracts for the feds before he quit in disgust. Name's Julian Penn. He's been sniffing around corruption in logistics. If anyone can make this public, it's him. Can you get me to him? I can call him, she said. But you can't stay here long. If they're tracking you, they'll be here before dawn. Jack nodded. Then we move fast. She picked up the office phone, dialed, waited. After 2 rings, a man's voice answered, cautious, low. She explained enough to make him listen, not enough to panic him. She hung up and looked at Jack. He'll meet you halfway. The rest stop near Divide. 3 hours from now. Jack stood. Thanks, Karen. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a small pistol, set it on the table between them. You remember how to use one? I remember too well. Take it anyway, she said. Not everyone's going to ask questions before shooting. He hesitated, then took it. The metal felt heavier than it should have. When he turned to leave, she caught his arm. Jack, she said quietly, you sure about this? Once you light it up, there's no going back. He met her gaze. I was done going back a long time ago. He walked out into the cold. The stars were sharp, the kind that make the night look deeper than it is. He climbed into the cab, fired the engine, and rolled slow out of town. For a while there was peace, just the road, the hum of tires, the faint smell of coffee clinging to his sleeve. But halfway to Divide, the quiet broke. Headlights appeared behind him. 2 sets, maybe 3. Jack's pulse quickened. He pushed the rig harder, but the road wound tight through the hills. No room to run fast. The headlights gained, steady, disciplined. Whoever they weren't amateurs. He reached for the CB. Karen, he said softly, knowing she was probably still listening on the old emergency channel they'd used in the service. If they find me before Divide, don't come looking. Static answered him. Then her voice, soft and fierce. You bring that evidence in, Mercer. Don't die with it. He smiled grimly. I'll do my best. The road curved into a canyon, moonlight painting the cliffs silver. Jack's headlights caught the sign for a scenic overlook ahead, one of those tourist pullouts with just enough space for a single rig. He took it fast, cutting his lights, coasting to a stop behind the guardrail. The convoy behind him thundered past, engines echoing through the canyon. He waited until the sound faded, then exhaled. "Not tonight," he whispered. But when he checked the mirror, a shadow moved, not on the road, but in the trees behind him. A shape stepped into the open, black-clad rifle in hand. Jack's heart dropped. They're already here. The man lifted a flashlight, sweeping the beam across the cab. Jack didn't think. He threw the truck into gear and slammed the accelerator. Gravel exploded under the tires as the Peterbilt roared back onto the road. The shooter fired 1, 2, 3 rounds. The mirror shattered. The rear panel sparked. Jack kept going. The engine howled as he took the next curve too fast. Snow spat from the tires, the trailer fishtailed, and for a second he thought he'd lose it. Then the rig caught traction again, straightening out just as dawn began to break over the peaks. Somewhere behind him, another engine started. Smaller, faster, relentless. He gripped the wheel tighter, eyes locked on the faint line of light ahead. Divide wasn't far, just a few more miles. He didn't know what waited there, a friend, a trap, maybe both. But he knew one thing for certain. If he didn't make it, the truth would die on this road with him. And for once in his life, Jack Mercer wasn't driving for a paycheck. He was driving for redemption. Dawn came crawling over the mountains in streaks of silver and fire. Frost glittered on the guardrails. The highway unwound through a basin of pine and rock, every curve catching the light like a blade. Jack Mercer had driven through more dawns than he could count, but never one that felt so much like a countdown. He was 15 minutes out from Divide. The Peterbilt rattled where the bullets had dented its skin, the trailer humming faintly as if something inside wanted to wake. The pistol Karen had given him sat on the passenger seat, a small, cold promise. Every mile marker was a drumbeat. His phone buzzed once. Unknown number. He hesitated, then thumbed the screen. "Unknown. You're almost there. Keep driving. Don't stop for anyone." He didn't know if it was Karen or Penn or the people who wanted him dead. He didn't have the luxury of guessing. The mountains around him rose higher, their slopes washed in morning light. At a pullout just ahead, a blue sedan waited, hazard lights blinking like a heartbeat. Jack slowed, wary. A man stepped out, tall, mid-40s, wearing a field jacket instead of a suit. He raised both hands, palms open. "Jack Mercer," he called. "Name's Julian Penn. Karen sent me." Jack kept the engine running. "Prove it." Penn lifted a badge, not government, civilian ID, Defense Oversight Alliance. "I'm not one of them. I've been tracking Interstar's shipments for months. You're the first one who made it this far." Jack studied him through the windshield, then killed the engine. "You got 1 minute, Penn." The man nodded. They've been smuggling classified biotech through civilian contracts. Easier to hide it among legitimate freight. You were supposed to deliver and disappear. They'd have written it off as a breakdown in the mountains. No questions asked. Jack's throat went dry. "And the people chasing me?" "Private security, Interstar's cleanup crew. The minute you opened that trailer, you became evidence." Jack stepped down from the cab. The air was thin and cold, his breath white in the sun. "So what now?" "We get your cargo secured. There's a state police unit waiting 5 miles up. They've got orders to protect whatever you're carrying." Jack laughed once, short and rough. "You really think anyone in uniform's gonna protect this? They're probably on the same payroll." Penn's eyes flicked toward the highway. "We don't have time for philosophy, Mercer. The sound cut him off. An engine, deep and rising fast. Jack turned. Down the grade, a dark shape came tearing through the light. Black SUV, windshield cracked, grille mangled but alive. Behind it, another. "They found you," Penn said. Jack sprinted for the cab. "Get in or get gone." Penn jumped onto the running board as Jack fired the engine. The Peterbilt roared, wheels throwing gravel as it lunged back onto the highway. The SUVs closed fast, one pulling alongside, the other dropping back. Penn leaned through the window, shouting over the engine. "They'll try to box you in." "Not today," Jack said. He downshifted hard, letting the truck surge up the incline. The first SUV swerved close, its passenger leaning out with a rifle. Jack jerked the wheel, slamming the trailer against the guardrail. Sparks flew. The SUV clipped the trailer's edge, spun sideways, and flipped into the ditch with a scream of metal and snow. The second stayed back, smarter. "Keep your head down," Jack yelled. Penn ducked as a burst of gunfire shattered the back window. Jack felt a sting across his shoulder, glass, not blood. He gritted his teeth, eyes on the road. They crested the ridge and started down toward the Divide rest stop, a wide turnout overlooking the valley. Penn pointed. "There, the state cruiser." Sure enough, a black and white sat near the pumps, lights flashing. Relief hit Jack like a breath of air. He pulled into the lot, brakes screaming. The rig slid sideways, kicking up a cloud of dust. The police cruiser's doors opened. 2 officers stepped out. For a split second, Jack thought they were Salvation. Then he saw the rifles, unmarked gear, wrong uniforms. "Get down," he shouted. Penn dove behind the tire as bullets shattered the windshield. Jack crawled across the cab, grabbed Karen's pistol, and fired through the broken glass. One of the fake cops went down. The other ducked behind the cruiser, firing blind. The remaining SUV pulled into the lot, its doors flying open. Men in black spilled out, moving like soldiers. Jack ducked low, firing again, emptying the pistol until the slide locked. Penn yelled from behind the wheel well, "We're surrounded!" Jack glanced toward the trailer. The refrigeration unit still blinked, steady, alive. The hum wasn't just machinery, it was power. He thought of the crates inside, the blue liquid that glowed faintly, even in darkness. "They want what's in there," he shouted. "Let's give it to them." He climbed into the cab, slammed the shifter into reverse, and floored it. The Peterbilt rolled backward fast, massive, unstoppable. The trailer slammed into the SUV behind, crushing its front end. Jack threw it back into drive, spun the wheel, and rammed forward into the fake cruiser. Metal shrieked, glass exploded, the world went white with noise. Penn clung to the step, shouting something Jack couldn't hear. The trailer door burst under the impact, swinging open. Crates toppled inside, one smashing against the floor. The hiss that followed was unlike anything human. Cold, chemical, alive. A cloud of vapor billowed out, bright blue under the sun. The gunfire stopped. The men froze, staring at the mist curling through the air. Then they started running. Jack and Penn both covered their mouths, backing away from the spreading fog. "What is it?" Jack yelled. Penn's voice was hoarse. "Prototype, viral nanite culture. It's not supposed to be active." Too late for that. They scrambled toward the edge of the lot, the air already tinged with ozone. The SUVs peeled out, vanishing down the highway. Within seconds, the mist thinned and settled, leaving silence behind, the kind of silence that carries weight. Penn coughed, eyes watering. "If that stuff leaks, the mountains will glow for a century." Jack leaned against the guardrail, chest heaving. "Then let's make sure it doesn't." They walked back toward the wrecked rig. The refrigeration unit had gone dark. Inside, the crates lay in ruin. Jack found one still intact and pried off the label. Project Lucent, property of Orphean Logistics. He handed it to Penn. Enough proof for you? Penn nodded slowly. Enough to bury half of Interstar. Sirens echoed faintly from the highway below, real ones this time, or close enough. Penn looked toward the sound. You should go, Mercer. Once the feds show up, they'll lock this down. Jack shook his head. No, I've run far enough. Penn met his eyes, then nodded once. Then we finish it together. They waited as the first real patrol cars rolled into view, red and blue lights cutting through the morning haze. Officers spilled out, guns raised, voices shouting orders. Penn stepped forward, badge up, yelling over the wind. Oversight Division, evidence secured, stand down. Jack stood beside him, hands raised, the sun breaking over the ridge behind them. The light hit the trailer, the Peterbilt, the cracked road, all of it gleaming like something clean at last. He felt the weight lift, just a little. When they cuffed him, he didn't fight. He'd done his part. The truth was out, or soon would be. As they led him toward the cruiser, he looked back one last time at the truck, the road, the valley beyond. The long haul was over, but the road, like memory, never really ends. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support inspires new stories.